Thank you for coming. Welcome to Drisha's Fall Programming and the third part of a series on Abraham Joshua Heschel, Human Dignity as a Divine Concern by Dr. Dror Bondi. And without further ado, Dr. Bondi.
Thank you. I want to open with a reminder to our last class, in which we read a very famous speech of Abraham Joshua Heschel about racism and the relation between racism and faith. Abraham Joshua Heschel tried to develop an idea that as much as you believe in one God, you have to be against racism. Believing faith in one God is not a mere saying. Faith in one God is a state of mind in which you stand before God as a parent, which makes you see all the others, all the rest of the human beings as your brothers and sisters. This is the deep meaning of faith in one God. And there was a question in our last class. What about another kind of faith? Nobody, not all the people believe in one God. Not all the people believe in the same God, etc. And I tried to explain that according to Heschel, the deep faith in one God is not the belonging to a tribe, the belonging to a nation, the belonging to a kind of church, etc. But the question is the perspective of God, the divine concern. And the question is not what is your faith, but what is the faith of God in you. And we are, yes, there is a pluralism. There is a pluralism in humanity. Even one person has this faith today and another faith tomorrow. And so the question is not what is your faith today about God, but the eternal faith of God in humanity, in all the human beings. This is the perspective of God, which Heschel calls us to stand before. So, and I mentioned in our last class that today we will read together another famous speech of Heschel about religious pluralism, which will explain it more deeper than my comment in our last class. The title of the speech that we will read today is "No Religion is an Island." It's a very famous speech, which Heschel delivered in at the Union Theological Seminary, a very Protestant, famous Protestant college in New York City. In fact, this college is located in the same place of the Jewish Theological Seminary in which Heschel worked. I believe you know New York City better than me, and if you stand near the Jewish Theological Seminary in Broadway, in North Manhattan, you can see in the other side of Broadway the Union Theological Seminary, which means that Heschel simply crossed Broadway in order to teach, in order to speak to the Christian students in this Protestant college. He was the first non-Protestant who taught in this college. In fact, this speech was his first class in a series of lessons that he taught for one semester during 1963. And the historical context is the famous Vatican II. I believe you know this famous historic event in which the church, the Catholic Church, declared that Judaism is a legitimate religion, and Heschel was, I believe, the Jew that was the most involved in this historical event. He had a very close relationship with Cardinal B, the bishop of the church, that wrote the declaration about Judaism, and it was a very complicated process in which Heschel was involved. In this historical context, the Union Theological Seminary, the Protestant college, also invited Heschel to speak to his students as part of the change of the Christian world to the Jews. Let's start reading. I'm sharing with you several quotes from this historical speech. Enid, do you want to read the first paragraph?
Okay.
First quote. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, good. Okay. I speak as a member of a congregation whose founder was Abraham, and the name of my rabbi is Moses. I speak as a person who was able to leave Warsaw, a city in which I was born, just 6 weeks before the disaster began. My destination was New York. It would have been Auschwitz or Treblinka. I am a brand plucked from the fire in which my people were burned to death. I am a brand plucked from the fire of an altar of Satan, on which millions of human lives were exterminated to evil's greater glory, and on which so much else was consumed. The divine image of so many human beings, many people's faith in the God of justice and compassion, and much of the secret and power of attachment to the Bible, bred and cherished in the hearts of men for nearly 2,000 years. I speak as a person who is often afraid and terribly alarmed, lest God has turned away from us in disgust, and even deprived us of the power to understand his word. Some of us are like patients in the state of final agony, who scream in delirium. The doctor is dead. The doctor is dead. Wow.
Please continue. Please continue.
Continue?
Yes.
Okay.
Another
Nazism.
paragraph. Yes.
What's that? Maybe someone else can continue? This is really dark.
Okay, Sarah, can you? Thank you. Can you help me? Thank you.
Sure, of course. Nazism, in its very roots, was a rebellion against the Bible, against the God of Abraham. Realizing that it was Christianity that implanted attachment to the God of Abraham and involvement with the Hebrew Bible in the hearts of Western man, Nazism resolved that it must both exterminate the Jews and eliminate Christianity, and bring about instead a revival of Teutonic paganism. Nazism has suffered a defeat, but the process of eliminating the Bible from the consciousness of the Western world goes on. It is on the issue of saving the radiance of the Hebrew Bible in the minds of man that Jews and Christians are called upon to work together. None of us can do it alone. Both of us must realize that in our age, anti-Semitism is anti-Christianity, and that anti-Christianity is anti-Semitism.
Another paragraph. This is the last one.
Sure.
It's prime.
The supreme issue is today not the halakha for the Jew or the church for the Christian, but the premise underlying both religions, namely, whether there is a pathos, a divine reality concerned with the destiny of man, which mysteriously impinges upon history. The supreme issue is whether we are alive or dead to the challenge and the expectation of the living God. Horizons are wider, dangers are greater. No religion is an island.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you to both of them. Yes, and why wow? What do you feel?
Well, it's a very apt description. And I've read a lot of descriptions of the Holocaust, but this is just, for some reason, very strong, very, very strong.
Yes.
Amazing.
And very unique in
Yeah.
in his understanding of the Holocaust.
It's personal.
It's very personal, and Heschel described here the Nazis' plan to discriminate the Jews as an anti-religion plan.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about racism, he said. They didn't want to kill us because a racist idea, but because they hate our faith. It's a very unique explanation
Mm-hmm.
about the Holocaust, about the Shoah, and why. Why he explained it? It's not the regular explanation about the Nazis. Yes. Why Heschel explained the Holocaust in this way? Maybe I can ask another question. Why indeed the Nazis hated us? Why the racist hate was toward the Jews?
Who knows?
There are a lot of nations in the world. Why all this crazy project? Yes, of the final solution. Yes, why us?
Well, they started with the gay community, and then they went on to the socialists, and then they came to the Jews, which Germany had a hundreds of years history of hating Jews. So it was just a matter of putting it finally into action in a big way.
Right, but Heschel has another explanation, and it's very interesting to try to understand.
Against God, yeah.
Yes, Brian, you raised your hand. Do you want to ask something?
Yes, no, I was going to say that what Heschel is doing is he's saying to the folks at the seminary, listen, this was not just that you have a stake in this, and that this was not solely something that was directed at the Jews or to the gay community or to socialists or to Slavs, but that this was a much broader project, and that at some point, if they had been successful, it would have eventually turned to you. And so, if there were to be anything that were to come in the future, be aware that you are not immune from this.
Of course, there is the context of this event. He tried to bring the Christian audience to feel empathy to his escape from Europe, to his experience of the meaning of the Holocaust. But I don't think this is the only reason. I think there is a very interesting interpretation here of the Holocaust, also for us, not only for the Christian audience, but also for us as a Jews to read such explanation of the Holocaust. You know, there is a famous divide between Hanukkah and Purim. Yes, in Purim, Haman wanted to fight against the Jewish body, and in Hanukkah, Antiochus, yes, the Greek king wanted to fight against the Jewish soul, the Jewish spirit, and until I read this text, I believe that the Holocaust is much more closer to Purim. In fact, the Nazis succeeded where Haman they accomplished the ancient dream to fight and to make us disappear. And here Heschel explained for us, the Jews, that the meaning of the Holocaust is much closer to Hanukkah. It explains the spirit of Nazism as the opposite of the spirit of Judaism. Yes, and maybe this is the explanation why the Nazis hate us so much. Why the final solution was only against the Jews. Why?
True.
Because Judaism is the very opposite of racism. Yes. As long as there is one Jew in the world who believes in one God, who believes that one God created all human beings in his image, the very idea of racism isn't a problem. This is why Hitler hated us so much, and this is the very deep share of Judaism and Christianity, because the Christian message to the world is also that there is one God and that all human beings should be see themselves as created in the image of God. And this is the very deep connection between Judaism and Christianity, that both of them are the very opposite of Nazis, of the Nazis' racist idea. It's for me as an Israeli, I was astonished, because in Israel our regular understanding of the Holocaust is as an ethnic, is as a racist hate against us, and this is why the state of Israel is the best answer to the Holocaust. They try to send us to the gas chambers, and we have to fight for our national state. But according to Heschel, if the reason that the Nazis hated us so much is a religion in the deep sense, is a religion hate, so the state of Israel is not the answer to the Holocaust. The very the best answer to the Holocaust is Tikkun Olam. They hated us because we are anti-racist. So our answer to this hate is to bring the idea of Tikkun Olam to all the people. It's a very, I believe, important implication of these two understandings of the Holocaust. Yes, anyone want to yes, Brian.
Why do these have to be mutually exclusive?
I don't understand.
Why is it that it's either racism or an anti-religious feeling? Why can't it be both?
Yes, in our
And why? And also, why is it that the answer cannot be both Israel and Tikkun Olam?
yes, in our previous class, I tried to explain why that according to Heschel and according to Martin Luther King, there is two kinds of religious consciousness. One religious consciousness goes together with racism, and another religious consciousness is the most important answer against racism. So this kind of faith, this kind of understanding of Judaism as a spiritual and moral understanding is the very opposite of racism. So it have to be racism or the deep faith in one God. And of course, you can be also a Zionist. You can be a moral and a spiritual believer, and in the same time be a Zionist. But the question is, what is your deepest understanding of Judaism? If your deepest understanding of Judaism is but as an ethnic phenomenon, as if to be part of the Jewish people is only a fate, is only a maybe cultural belonging. So there is no place for this deep understanding of the spirit of Judaism. You might understand the spirit of Judaism as part of your ethnic community, of your culture. But if your deep understanding of Judaism is as a moral and a spiritual understanding of Tikkun Olam, then in this context, there is a place for Zionism as part of your mission for Tikkun Olam. But you will have to ask yourself anytime, is Israel, the state of Israel, live in this way? If the state of Israel accomplishes the idea of Tikkun Olam. Okay. Shall we continue to read? Now, in the next paragraph, Heschel explained again is this deep understanding of God as a parent, of human dignity as a divine concern, which we spoke about in our previous class. Now in the context of interreligious dialogue. Yes. Does someone want to read the next paragraph? On what basis? Brian, do you want to read maybe?
Sure.
Thank you.
On what basis do we people of different religious commitments meet one another? First and foremost, we meet as human beings who have so much in common: a heart, a face, a voice, the presence of a soul, fears, hope, the ability to trust, a capacity for compassion and understanding, the kinship of being human. My first task in every human encounter is to comprehend the personhood of the human being I face, to sense the kinship of being human, solidarity of being. To meet a human being is a major challenge to mind and heart. I must recall what I normally forget. A person is not just a specimen of the species called Homo sapiens. He is all of humanity in one. And whenever one man is hurt, we are all injured. The human is a disclosure of the divine, and all men are in God's care for man. Many things on earth are precious, some are holy. Humanity is holy of holies. To meet a
Yes, please continue.
Okay. To meet a human being is an opportunity to see the image of God, the presence of God. According to rabbinical interpretation, the Lord says to Moses, "Wherever you see the trace of man, there I stand before you." When engaged in a conversation with a person of different religious commitment, I discover that we disagree in matters sacred to us. Does the image of God I face disappear? Does God cease to stand before me? Does the difference in commitment destroy the kinship of being human? Does the fact that we differ in our conceptions of God cancel what we have in common, the image of God?
Wow. What do you say about these final questions? Do you feel once this tension between your concept and conceptual understanding of the religion and the most deep feeling of all being human as created in the likeness of God? Did you ever feel this tension? But for Heschel, it's not a real tension. Our mutual feeling as human beings, the deep dialogue, dialogical feeling of brotherhood and sisterhood between one human being to another, this is the most important effect of God upon us. And our conceptions about God, this is our understandings of God. This is not his understanding of humanity. What do you say?
This sounds to me like a very beautiful explanation of Ve'ahavta.
Yes.
It's amazing. It does sound like this is what you got to do if you actually want to do it.
Yes, as you know, the end of this verse from the Torah, "Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha," love your neighbor as yourself. The next words in the Torah, "Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha," ani Hashem, I am the Lord, because according to Heschel, the source of the love to your neighbor, the source of your love, the source of the love between human beings is I am the Lord. The Lord's perspective on humanity.
Yeah.
When you open your heart to feel, to show humanity, to see humanity from God's perspective, then you, as I explained in our last class, it's like the love to your brother or sister, which according to Heschel, the source of this love to your brother and sister is your brother, your father and mothers, your fathers and mothers' love to both of you. When you open yourself to see your brother from the perspective of your mother and your father, then you feel the brotherhood and the sisterhood between you. Okay, and maybe we will read another paragraph in which Heschel explained it in his words, and in the context of the relation between Jews and Christians. Does another one want to read? Yael, maybe you want to help us. There are levels of existence here.
Yes, of course. I'll be
Please
happy to.
read. There are levels.
There are levels of existence where Jews and Christians meet as sons and brothers. To be sure, all people, all men are sons of one father, but they have also the power to forfeit their birthright, to turn rebels, voluntary bastards. It is not flesh and blood, but honor and disobedience that saves the right of sonship. We claim brotherhood by being subject to God's commandments. We are sons when we hearken to the Father, when we praise and honor him. The recognition that we are sons in obeying God and praising him is the starting point of my reflection. I am a companion of all who fear thee, of those who keep thy precepts. I rejoice wherever his name is praised, his presence sensed, his commandment done. The first and most important prerequisite of interfaith is faith. Religion is...
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
Vakasha.
yes, thank you. Yes, as you can see, yes, in these lines, Heschel understood the source of interfaith dialogue in this deep understanding of faith. Yes, the deep understanding of faith is not to say something about God. The deep understanding of faith is to feel God's presence in every human being, to feel his Tselem Elohim, to feel his likeness in the face of your companion, in the face of you, of every human being. And this is why, even though we are all the sons or the daughters of God, when someone behaves as a Nazi, when someone hated another human being because his racist perspective, because this hate, the source of this, when the source of this hate is racist, then this Nazi, this fascist, lost his sonhood. Yes, lost his relation to the father or mother of all humanity. Yes, you can lost the likeness of God when you are a racist. When you look at another human being from racist perspective, when you behave to another human being as if you but an object, you lose your connection with the universal parent of all humanity, and you lose this right to see yourself as a son of God. What do you say about this understanding of the brotherhood and sisterhood between human beings, about this understanding of racism, about this understanding of racism as a, yes, when you are racist, when you look at another human being as if he is not a human being, then you are losing the understanding of yourself as a human being. To be a human being is not a mere biological condition. To be a human being depends on the relation to all the other human beings. When you, yes, yeah, please, you want to ask something?
The problem, I think all of us here agree with this, but the problem in encountering racism is that those who are racist do not believe that the groups against which they stand are fully human. They see them not as children of God, but something else. And I think that's the essential problem.
Yes, yes, but the question is why? Why you see the other community as not a full human beings? Why? If the source of your perspective is racist, the meaning is that you are losing the right to be a human being in its full meaning. But if the source of your perspective is the love that you want to be between all human beings, because you call the other community and the other communities to be in love, to be in this sisterhood and brotherhood with you, and the other communities behave in a racist way, so there is a right to fight against them. They don't want to see you as a human being, so they lose the right to be the sons of God. But you want everyone to be in love. You want that all the communities will live together as the sons and daughters of God. So you have to fight against racist communities. Yes, this is the difference between hate another community just because their ethnic source or their religious belief, or to fight against community because this is a racist community. Yes. Enid, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. One is he saying that really if you don't believe in God, you really haven't got a shot at brotherhood, because it takes a belief in God to understand that we're all made by one God, and that's the basis? I mean, what if you run up against people who don't believe in God? They still maybe wouldn't want to be racist. I mean, how do you relate to that? How does he relate to that?
Yes, the question is, what is the meaning of you believe in God? Yes, it's not a mere saying.
Okay.
for Heschel, the test of you believing God is this brotherhood and sister, and this and sisterhood.
Okay, right.
If you believe in God, make you lose this feeling of brotherhood, the meaning is that you believe in God is an idolatry. This is what he said in his previous speech. But
Right.
the question is, if you really feel the brotherhood and sisterhood between all human beings, and you say, I don't believe in God, for Heschel, the real test is the feeling of brotherhood and sisterhood. If this is the most important test. The question is not what you are saying about God, but the question is if you feel His presence between all human beings.
Okay.
And the question is not if you say I feel this presence, but how you behave to all human beings. This is the most important test. So Heschel's friends were human rights fighters, and I don't think that he judged the friendship according to their saying about God, to their if they are Christians, if they are seculars. This is not the question. The question is if you feel human rights in humanity. This is the most important test, and I believe, according to Heschel. Maybe we can read it in the next paragraph. Yes, but you have another question, Aned? You said that you have several questions.
No, I think you answered them. The person, it's true that Heschel would say that if you believe in brotherhood and sisterhood, then that is more important than whether you say you believe in God or whether you actually are, say, an atheist and you don't believe in God altogether. He might still define this brotherhood as somehow relating to that. Or he'd say it's not as important whether you believe or not.
Let's read it in his words in the next paragraph.
Okay.
Yes. Does someone want to read? No, but Miri, are you with us? Do you want to read? Or Lisa? Oh.
I'll read.
Thank you. Thank you. Religion is a means.
Okay. All right. Religion is a means, not the end. It becomes idolatrous when regarded as an end in itself. Over and above all being stands the Creator and Lord of history, He who transcends all. To equate religion and God is idolatry. Does not the all-inclusiveness of God contradict the exclusiveness of any particular religion? The prospect of all men embracing one form of religion remains an eschatological hope. What about here and now? Is it not blasphemous to say, I alone have all the truth and the grace, and all those who differ live in darkness and are abandoned by the grace of God? Human faith is never final, never an arrival, but rather an endless pilgrimage, a being on the way. We have no answers to all problems. Heresy is often a roundabout expression of faith, and sojourning in the wilderness is a preparation for entering the promised land.
Wow. Wow. Did you ever read such an explanation about the relation between religion and God? About the difference between religion and God. God and religion are not the same. And sometimes heresy is also part of our way around God. What do you say about this saying? Do you believe that religious people have also moments of heresy? Do you believe? And maybe atheists as also a moment of faith? Maybe it is much more complicated than I am a part of religious community. I believe in God. I believe in God. It's much more complicated than to say such a thing. Yes, Brian. I'm from Israel. I don't know what is raising a hand. Here we everyone want to say something and we simply start saying it. Yes. Please.
Sorry, yes, this is a significant cultural difference. So I'm curious as to how such views were received by other rabbis, because this is a very profound statement. Because in very many ways, it almost undermines or raises questions about a strict halachic life.
Yes.
Because it says, don't fetishize the things that you believe to be both superior to others in terms of belief, but also in terms of practice. And that by becoming so focused and so single-minded in your view of what is acceptable and not acceptable practice, you actually act in a way that is very contrary to what it is to have belief.
Yes. Thank you. It's a very important question. In fact, in this speech of Heschel is a reply to Rabbi Soloveitchik speech about interreligious dialogue, which was titled by Rav Soloveitchik, Confrontation. According to Rabbi Soloveitchik, the meaning of being part of one religious community is that you can't speak with a human being from another religious community, especially not to speak about your deep faith. Because according to Rabbi Soloveitchik, indeed we are human beings, but our religious saying, there is a confrontation between them. If you want to believe in Jesus, you can believe. I can believe in the Torah, and as much as we speak to each other about faith, we will fight. We will not understand each other. There will be only a confrontation. So we can cooperate about social issues, but we shouldn't speak about religious issues. This is Rabbi Soloveitchik. No confrontation, which Rabbi Soloveitchik spoke this speech because Vatican II, etc. And this is Heschel's reply. No religion is an island. In every meaningful religious saying, there is the same one God. And as much you will speak to each other about your religious understandings, you will find the same ground, the same sky, the same heaven, and indeed this is a Hasidic saying about religious practice, about religious deeds. As you know, the Hasidic movement was a rebellion. This is the word, against the religious establishment of its time. When the ancient religious establishment say you have to practice halacha. This is the test of being a Jew. The Hasidic movement say, no, there is a deeper place than halachic deeds. And if you can't pray between 6 and 8 in the morning from the Siddur, from the praying book, please go to the forest afternoon and call God in your own words. And this is the deeper understanding of praying. Praying is not only to read from the praying book. To pray is first and foremost to stand before God and not only to read the words of the prayer. Yes, and in this sense, Heschel saw himself as the no, he went in the ways of his Hasidic fathers, and his Hasidic rabbis, just like he intended to be by them. When he came back from the famous Selma march with Martin Luther King, his wife and daughter asked him how it was to march with Martin Luther King, and he said, my legs were praying. To fight against racism is to stand before God, and this is a much more important understanding of Judaism than, and much more deep understanding, it's deeper understanding of Judaism that a mere halachic phenomenon for him.
So I have a question. When talking to other faiths, since each in turn believes that they have a revealed truth, and those in some cases overlap and in some cases are very close to your own, but there are profound differences between them, and this is not just a matter of practice, it's not just a matter of putting practice over truth, but that there are fundamental disagreements. And in particular with both Christianity and Islam, since they succeed in terms of time order, Judaism, they both make statements, actively make statements about either perfecting previous revelations or that they represent the last of what is the perfect revelation. So in that context, how does that square with what you just described in terms of Heschel's reaction to Soloveitchik?
Yes, thank you. If I can suggest, please read all Heschel's speech. He is really related to your question in his words, but I don't bring them here. But he wrote about it, and this is maybe if I can say in few words, this is why this interreligious dialogue is so important for Heschel. In our first class, I explained that when Heschel met Adolf Hitler, he understood that his mission as a Jewish philosopher is to change the Western civilization, to help the Western civilization to find its deepest source of moral obligation. And this is why he engaged in this Vatican II progress of the Catholic Church, because he because he wanted to open the Christian heart to the understanding that no religion is an idol. Because he do care, because Heschel's believed that in the deepest source of Christianity and Islam, there is the same one God of Judaism. In spite of all the past saying in Christianity, in Islam, and also in Judaism, also in his own days, about that our religious saying is the only one. No, Heschel wants to change the world. Heschel wants that all the religious people will find that the deepest source of their own religion is the same one God of all religion. And this is a Hasidic perspective. This is not a Christian or universal perspective. This is what Heschel learned from the Besht, from the Kotzker, and he wrote a book about this. If you want, there is one of his books is about Heschel and Kierkegaard, not Heschel, the Kotzker, the Kotzker rabbi, and Kierkegaard, the famous Christian philosopher, and this shared understanding of both of them from the 19th century. The name of the book is A Passion for Truth.
Can you say the name of the book again?
A Passion for Truth.
Thanks.
Thank you for everyone of being part of our class today. Thank you. And thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. This is very interesting.
And I do want to give a quick plug to everyone before you jump off the call. In addition to this class, Drisha has many classes running right now, and you can find all of the details and the registration links on our website at www.drisha.org/classes. So again, thank you all for your participation, and thank you, Dr. Bondi, for an amazing class as always.
Thank you.
Thank you.